So my name is Candace and I'm a Girl Scout and I'm working on my Girl Scout Gold Award. So what a Gold Award is, it's basically the highest award that a Girl Scout can earn. And it's earned by doing a community service project. So for my Gold Award project, I wanted to teach elementary school students about how to live a healthy lifestyle. And leading a healthy lifestyle includes lots of different things. So for my project, I focused on healthy eating, physical health like exercising and hygiene, and keeping a healthy mind, which includes things like how to resolve conflicts and anger management and learning about different emotions. So for the next 7 videos, I'm going to be teaching a little part about each of those things, and hopefully with all of them you can get a better idea of how to maybe live a healthier lifestyle. So for today, I'm going to be talking about the 5 different food groups, and this fits into the healthy eating part of my project. So the 5 different food groups. So right now I want you to kind of take a moment and think for a second about if you know what the 5 different food groups are, or maybe think for a second about what you think they might be. Okay, so I hope you had a chance to think about it, and now I'll go over it, and hopefully what I say, some of the things you had already thought about. So the 5 food groups that we have fruits, we have vegetables, we have proteins, grains, and dairies. So I'll say it again. We have fruits, vegetables, proteins, grains, and dairies. So those are the 5 different food groups. And you might have already seen it. I have it on my big My Plate right here. And what the My Plate does, it kind of just it shows you the different food groups, and it shows you the importance of eating a little bit of all the foods. So I actually have kind of an example right here. I know it doesn't have dairy, but we have the fruits, grains, vegetables, and proteins, and some examples of food that fit into this category. So I'll go through a couple of examples of foods that belong in each category. So starting off with fruits. I'm sure you can think of plenty of fruits. You probably had some maybe this morning for breakfast. You might be thinking of things like strawberries, bananas, apples, oranges, and all those are absolutely correct, and there are so many different types of fruits out there. So those all belong in the fruits, which is our first food group. So the second one is vegetables. And again, I'm sure you can think of plenty right now. Again, maybe take a moment, think of some. So we have things like broccoli, carrots, and lettuce, cauliflower, zucchini, so many different types of vegetables that belong in the vegetables food group. So the next one that we have is proteins. And the foods that belong in proteins are all the foods that we would classify as meats, such as chicken, beef, fish, pork, or anything like that. But some other forms of protein that you might not have thought about at first are things like beans, things like nuts, and things like tofu. Those might not be the first foods that pop into your head when someone says the word protein, but nevertheless, they still contain large amounts of protein. So the next one that we have, the 4th food group that we have, is grains. So some of the foods that belongs in the grains category are things like rice, noodles, cereal, crackers, bread, and lots of things, lots of foods like that. And the last food group that we have is dairy. And foods that belong in the dairy category include cheese, yogurt, milk, sour cream, cottage cheese, and I'm sure you can think of many more that belong in this food group as well. So again, those are our 5 food groups: fruits, vegetables, proteins, grains, and dairy. So I'm going to talk really quick about the importance of eating a little bit of each food group. Because we all know fruits and vegetables are very important for us, but it's not as if we can live off of purely fruits or just vegetables, right? We need a variety. We need a little bit of everything. What you might call a balanced meal or a balanced diet. And that's exactly what it means when we eat a little bit of every single food group. So we want to make sure we have our day's worth of fruits, our vegetables, maybe have a piece of chicken, a piece of bread, a cup of milk, just something that really balances out your diet and making sure you're getting food from every single group so your body can have all the nutrients that it needs to grow and function the best that it can. And I'm also going to talk really quickly about fruits and vegetables. People kind of seem to join them into one group, which is maybe just fruits and vegetables. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference. So they're obviously both very important for you, and you need fruits every day and you need vegetables every day. However, one is a little bit healthier for you than the other. So I want you to take a second and just think in your head, which one do you think is healthier, fruits or vegetables? So if you said vegetables, then you're absolutely correct. And if you didn't, that's okay. I'm going to explain why. So vegetables are actually considered to be healthier than fruits. And the reason for this is because fruits contain a lot of sugar. Have you ever bitten into, an apple or an orange, or on a hot summer day, you've been into a nice juicy red watermelon, and it's really sweet and very tasty, right? So the reason for that is because it has a lot of sugar. Natural sugar is present in most of the fruits, and that's what makes it slightly, I don't want to say unhealthy, because fruits are absolutely not unhealthy. It's just that you should be getting more vegetables than fruits. So now that I talked about the foods that you would eat that belong in each category, I'm going to talk about water, because water is very important for us, but it's not something that really fits into any of these food groups. So water is really important for our bodies because our bodies are actually made up of about 70% water. And just to give you a picture, that is more than half. More than half of our body is made up of water. So as you can tell, without water, we wouldn't really be able to function, and that's not healthy for us at all. So we lose water when we breathe, when we sweat, especially if you exercise a lot and you find yourself breathing really hard or sweating a lot, your body is losing a lot of water. So that's why after you exercise or run around or sweat, you really feel thirsty because your body is telling you to drink water so you don't get dehydrated, which means to have a lack of water. So your body can essentially replace that water that it lost when you were breathing a lot or sweating a lot. So that's why it's really important to drink a lot of water. Now, as you can see, I have this really big on my plate with the 5 different food groups. So the dairies, grains, fruits, vegetables, and protein. So I'm going to show you a bunch of different types of food, and each of them fits into one of the 5 food groups. And I'm going to show it to you, and before I place it onto mine, I want you to take a second and think which food group it belongs in. So let's start with this, bananas. Where do you think bananas belong in? So if you said fruits, you are absolutely correct. Okay, so the next one. Broccoli. Where do you think broccoli belongs in? Which food group? If you said vegetables, give yourself a pat on the back. You got it correct. So the next one we have is a glass of milk. So I hope you said dairy because milk belongs in the dairies. So now we have a loaf of bread. If you said grains, again, you're absolutely correct. Next we have carrots. So carrots belong with the broccoli here in the vegetables group. Next we have some beans. And beans belong with the protein. That was a little bit of a tricky one, so if you got that, give yourself a little round of applause. Now next we have some crackers. So I hope you said that crackers belongs up here with the bread in the grains group. Next we have a strawberry. And if you said that strawberry is a fruit, then you're absolutely correct. And next we have some cheese. So I hope you said that cheese belongs up here with the dairy. Couple more. What about some rice? If you said rice belongs with the grains, good job, you got it correct. What about eggs? If you said protein, again, this was a bit of a tricky one, so good job. And a very, very last one. What about yogurt? And yep, I hope you said dairies. So again, these are, and of course, these are just a couple of foods. There's so many more foods that can be sorted into these different groups, but here's just some common ones that you would maybe see in your everyday life. But of course, when we eat food, we don't just eat food that belongs to one food group. We eat food where the ingredients might belong to all different kinds or all different food groups. So I'm going to give a couple examples of some foods, and we're going to break it down and place each ingredient into the different food groups. So let's start with a pizza. All pizza needs a pizza crust, the dough. So where do you think the dough, which group do you think that would fall into? And yep, I hope you said that the dough belongs with the grains, because the pizza dough is a bit like bread, and we have bread right up there in the grains. So the dough belongs in the grains. Now what about the cheese? And yes, cheese belongs in the dairy group. Now let's think about what are some toppings that you might like. Maybe some spinach, onions, bell peppers. Where do those three foods belong? And yep, I hope you said they belong in the vegetable group. So that's just, a very simple pizza, and just break it down into a couple of ingredients. And I hope you can see how a food contains other foods or other ingredients from all different food groups. Now let's do one more. What about spaghetti with tomato sauce and meatballs? Let's start with the meatballs. Let's say you have some beef meatballs. Where do you think, which food group do you think that would fit into? And I hope you said the meatballs would fit into the proteins group. Now let's think about the tomato sauce. Where do you think the tomato sauce would fit into? And if you're kind of thinking, okay, tomato sauce, made out of tomatoes, and tomatoes are a fruit. Now the last thing, of course, we need the noodles. Now where do you think noodles would fit into? Which food group? So again, I hope you said grains. Noodles belong in the grains. So again, that's just another example to show you how the foods that we eat for a meal can be broken down and placed into the different food groups. And so the kind of last thing I want to talk about is the importance of how food is prepared and not just simply what the food is. Because take, for example, something like potatoes. Potatoes are healthy for us. They're a good source of energy. They can be eaten boiled, mashed, stuff like that. So I think we can all agree that potatoes are generally healthy for us. Now what about something like French fries though? Would you really consider French fries to be healthy? Not really, right? And you might be thinking, wait, but French fries are made out of potatoes and we just said the potatoes are healthy. But that's where we didn't really think about how the potatoes are prepared or how they're cooked or what is done to them to make them into those delicious fries that we all love. And you might know already, and if you don't, I'll talk about it right now. So potatoes are made into French fries by, being cut into the little pieces, and then they're fried in oil. And that is the reason why, although potatoes are healthy for us and good for us, French fries not so much, because yes, they contain potatoes, but they also contain lots of oil, which contain a lot of fat. And we'll be talking about fat in the next video, so I'm not going to get into that too much right now. But that's an example of the importance of how a food is prepared and not just simply what the food is. So now let's play a little game and see, you can kind of think of some foods for yourself now. So I am going to say, for example, something like name a vegetable that starts with C. And maybe you're thinking of carrot, really, that's what I thought of. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of those, and you just think about some foods that come into your mind. And after a couple seconds, I will tell you some things that I came up with too. And maybe we had thought of the same food or maybe different foods. And if you hadn't thought of anything, then I can give you some ideas. So let's start with, what is a protein that starts with C? So I thought about chicken, maybe you also thought about chicken, maybe something else, but chicken is a protein that starts with C. Now what about a fruit that starts with W? Where you may be thinking of watermelon. Again, that's what I thought of. Maybe you thought of something else. Now what about a dairy that starts with C? There's a couple that I thought of for this, cottage cheese and cheese. Again, maybe you thought of something else. And what about a grain that starts with N? I thought of noodles. Noodles, I don't have it in the picture, but noodles belong in the grains category. Now what about a vegetable that starts with S? Did you maybe think of a couple for this one? I thought of spinach and I thought of squash. Hopefully, or maybe you thought of some other different vegetables as well. Let's do a couple more. What about, it's a bit of a tricky one. What about a protein that starts with T? So the food that I thought of is one that I had mentioned before. it might not be the first thing that comes to your mind when someone says protein, but I thought of tofu. So again, tofu is kind of one of those foods that it might seem a little weird, maybe you're not as familiar with it, but tofu is still a very good source of protein. Now, last one, what about a fruit that starts with B? So I thought of blueberries or bananas. I'm sure you had thought of some other different ones too. So that was just a little bit of reviewer practice, I guess you could say, about the 5 different food groups. And one more time, just to say it, why don't you say it with me? The 5 different food groups are fruits, vegetables, proteins, grains, and dairy. So I hope you guys learned a little bit more about the different food groups. So that's it for this first video about the 5 different food groups. And I will attach, I have a handout, or just kind of something that reviews the things from this video. So this shows the different food groups and a couple of examples of foods that belong in each of these groups. And also, if you want to have a little fun, if you guys like word searches, there will also be a word search with some healthy foods, things like apples, asparagus, avocado, and banana, and many, many more. So I hope you have fun with that, and I will see you in the next video when we talk about nutrition labels and nutrition facts. Thanks for watching.